All right, everybody, welcome back. The Bitcoin Plus Plus Conference news desk, the live feed. That's right, Walton and we've got Derek and Damian working on the Prism project. And I'm not going to lie, I don't know anything about the Prism project, so we need you guys to educate us.
Yeah, so I guess we should start with Bolt 12. So we're using Bolt 12 to create what are called prisms. And so a little background on
What are prisms?
prisms. So back a year and a half or so ago, Gigi wrote an article on this idea of lightning prisms, which is basically you should have one unique identifier that you can pay to. For example, lightning address, or we're using Bolt 12 as the properties that gives us. So you can have a unique identifier and when that gets paid, it has members in it that are part of the prism. So you pay once and then you end up splitting out the payment to multiple parties
So it's a way of batching transactions.
over Lightning. Yeah.
Very interesting. That kind of makes me think of a use case where you have an employer with payroll. So, stupid question, when you're splitting up these payments, can they all be different amounts or do they all have to be the same amount split up between a certain number of payments, so to speak? Right? Like, it's like, could I be paying Walton, like, let's say 5,000, 7,000 sats, and, you're getting like 25,000 sats, and, you're getting like 15,000 sats, or like, am I even remotely close to how that could work? Or
Yeah, that's totally possible. It's
Okay.
like each split in the prism gets a percentage of the payment. So if you paid 1,000 sats, one person could get 50%, two people get 25%, and then when that 100 sats gets sent in, then one person gets 50 sats and it splits out. So the example of an employer is interesting, or something we've thought about too. Is like a employee can have their own prism that every time someone buys a coffee or something from that specific employee, then that employee directly gets a split, and then the remaining goes to the coffee shop. So the employee is directly being paid when the consumer is buying the product.
I like to think of it as a way to just automate your cash flows. So if you're a small business, you might structure your checkout system to like supply Bolt 12 offer instead of like the typical Bolt 11. And that Bolt 12 offer could represent Prism, right? So they might issue a single Bolt 12 offer, and behind the scenes are like
multiple
products.
parties.
Yeah, and you can automate your cash flows too. So as you make payments to this Prism, the sats can kind of accumulate, and then when a certain threshold hits, like an order can be made, for example.
You see why I get excited about Bolt 12 and
Yeah,
why
big
I
time.
pestered largely
Yeah.
about when Bolt 12 for LND, because Bolt 12 enables so much additional functionality for Lightning. So I'm guessing you guys are running maybe 4.
Right, well, so far,
Yeah, so we made a Core Lightning plugin. So Core Lightning supports Bolt 12. Bolt 12 doesn't have the functionality of prisms, so we made a plugin that makes it so that you can register a prism with a specific Bolt 12. So when that Bolt 12 gets paid, then the prism launches.
So Prism is essentially Bolt 12 plus plus.
So it's a payment split implementation, and technically you don't have to use Bolt 12. We're focusing on Bolt 12 because of the properties that it gives us.
With reusable Lightning addresses, is that the
That's a big one, and then privacy.
invoices, not addresses?
Yeah, that would be key. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you create an offer, it's a Bolt 12 offer, and the offer is used to fetch an invoice from the remote or Lightning.
And maybe suggest the path or something.
And then it's from a privacy perspective, it's got this thing called blinded paths, which makes receiver privacy a lot better on Lightning.
So this seems to be a theme, right? Because like at this point we've spoken with at least I think 7 or 8, maybe 9 different groups of people working on projects, and this blinded path theme keeps coming back again and again. So I feel like, is this something that's already there?
I think with Lightning, in order to enable the routing of the payment, you essentially leak the path that a payment can take, and so therefore that is a privacy issue. And so blinded paths, my understanding is it seeks to obfuscate that.
Yeah,
that
it's
data.
basically like, hey, here's some, think of it this way, it's like, I'm going to suggest to you some nodes that know how to reach me. You pay them and then they'll pay me. So you're kind of providing like proxy in front of your payment. But like technically it just allows you to avoid putting your node ID in the invoice, which is very important.
Yes. So let me ask you this, how far into the Prism project are you? I mean, is it beta? Is it like?
Yeah, so last year we were on the winning hackathon team at Bitcoin for this project, and so it's 1 year in, and we have a lot of ideas.
So it was just founded last year, like during the hackathon. It was your
That's
project.
right. It was the
That's
hackathon
incredible.
project.
That's all, yes.
That's pretty cool history.
So we're kind of doing that. We've developed a website called voyage.guide that kind of documents the entire Prism project that we're working on. And we've got a really cool demo on there with used with LM3, which is like a Lightning Network simulator. So we kind of built that in conjunction with a lot of this other stuff in order to test and develop the Prism plugin itself. So definitely check out the demo. It's worth taking a look. This is Clams Remote, if you're familiar with that.
We are not familiar with that.
It's a Core Lightning wallet, basically, a wallet for Core Lightning, but it's just a web app.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess, let me ask you guys this, because I mean, I ask this in every single project. What have you found in terms of, possible issues or ways that somebody could attack this or break it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Maybe you want to take that one?
I don't know if I put enough thought into that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
All right, no problem. I'll mention a couple of things when we were trying to develop this thing. People brought up a couple of issues that we had to continue. One is Lightning Network fees.
Oh,
The thing
okay.
about Lightning Network is that you don't really know the fees you're going to pay on a payment until after
Right.
the payment succeeds. So we have kind of an accounting issue we have to deal with.
So do you have an estimator or something like that? I mean,
Basically what we're doing is we're tracking an outlay for every member. So if a node is offline or, and we use the fees as well, but if a node is offline and just track the outlay fees, we track that into the outlay property so that over time, fees go to zero, or you can basically have the accounting such that the node Prism member has to pay fees.
okay, so that's configurable.
So another issue with it is that there's the Prism itself, like the way that you define the Prism is held on one node.
Mhm.
And so when you're paying that Prism, you're essentially trusting that one node to maintain the integrity of that Prism and pay out what they promised to pay out. So the node operator that's running the Prism plugin could, in theory, change the data within the Prism to maybe give themselves a higher split than they originally promised.
Oh, okay.
But there are ways to, as a receiver of a Prism, to verify that you are getting the correct
What you're
split.
supposed to do.
And it's important to know that when you're paying the 112 offer, you are paying a node, a Lightning node. And that, like, usually an individual or a small company might own that node, and they ultimately control what happens after the money is received. So depending on the use case that you're using Prism
Yes.
for, it's custodial. But I mentioned earlier that you could automate your cash flows or do something like stocks or profits based on Prisms. And so, like, it really depends on the use case you're using Prisms for, on whether or not it's a custodial thing.
So who would you say is, in terms of thinking of like a retail user, who would you say is your target audience for this type of project, right? We fast forward, this gets implemented, right? It's and like you said, automating cash flows, and in my eyes, I see it for some type of a payroll type of application. Have you guys thought about that? Who the target market is for this?
I think what I'm most excited about is value for value. Because right now, like on the value for value podcasting platform, you put your splits into Fountain, for example.
Yep.
And then Fountain is the one that pays out those splits.
Mhm.
But you could have a fully sovereign split system where you put a Bolt 12 on your podcast, and when people tip you, it goes directly to your node, and then your node is what splits out the payments to whoever you're trying to give your value to.
I like serious self-sovereignty right there. I like that. Walter, do you have any more questions for them?
yeah, where can we find out more about how Prism works?
Yeah.
So we mentioned that website, roygbiv.guide. Roygbiv was our team name from last year. I think we're going to kind of bring the team where, you know, some of
And the
teams
initials of the
together.
visible colors of light, right?
That's right. So the idea of a prism, white light goes in,
Yeah.
split out. That's the idea.
Dispersion.
I love it. I love it. Guys, thank you so much for sitting down with us, the news desk, explaining Prism. Damian and Derek, I think the project's very, very cool. Thanks a
Thanks for
lot.
having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm still waiting for it to see if it's finishing.
We're still
'cause it
live.
shows we're still live.
We're still live, Phil.
Yeah,
I think we're still live.
yeah, we're still live.
So
Take a look at
time
Walton's
chain
t-shirt.
calendar.
We will hang out with you guys until the Streff course, right?
Good morning, Bitcoin Plus Plus. Good afternoon, Bitcoin Plus Plus.